A hurricane watch just went up over the big island of Hawaii, and the storm that triggered it is still getting stronger. 20 inches of rain. That is the top-end figure in the forecast. And on an island built out of steep volcanic slopes, 20 inches of rain does not run politely down to the sea. The Central Pacific Hurricane Center says Tropical Storm Lala could be near hurricane strength by the time it reaches the island, and the watch now covers all of Hawaii County. Rain at that scale cuts the roads, drops the power lines, and pushes mud through houses that sit on ground too steep to hold it. The forecasters did not soften it either. The words in the official product are life-threatening flooding and mudslides, and they were written about much of the island chain, not one valley. For most of this week, the system did not even have a name. It was a disturbance more than 1,000 miles out in open water, the kind of thing that usually falls apart long before anyone in Honolulu has to think about it. But on Thursday, it became Tropical Storm Lala. A hurricane watch went up for the big island, and the forecast track stopped bending away. Coming up, what the forecast actually says about Saturday morning, hour by hour, and the two other things happening on that same island in the same 72 hours, one of them 1.5 miles under the ocean, that almost nobody outside Hawaii has heard about. But first, where the storm is right now. At 5 o'clock on Thursday morning, Hawaii time, the Central Pacific Hurricane Center placed the center of Lala 705 miles east-southeast of Hilo, at 15.2 degrees north, 145.5 degrees west. Maximum sustained winds, 40 miles an hour. Minimum central pressure, 1,001 millibars, which is 29.56 inches. Movement west at 10 miles an hour with a turn toward the west-northwest expected. And then the number that matters more than the wind speed does. Tropical storm force winds already reach 140 miles out from the center. A storm that wide does not need to score a direct hit on anything. It only needs to come close. Now the ramp. The intensity forecast reported from the Hurricane Center runs like a staircase, 40 miles an hour at the start of Thursday, 50 by Thursday evening, 65 by Friday evening, 70 on Saturday. Hurricane strength begins at 74 miles an hour. The forecast peak is 4 miles an hour underneath it. That is the entire margin. 4 miles an hour is inside the error of any intensity forecast made 2 days out, which is exactly why the Hurricane Center put a watch up instead of waiting. A hurricane watch does not mean a hurricane is coming. It means hurricane conditions are possible in the watch area, and it is issued about 48 hours before tropical storm force winds are expected to arrive. Possible is the honest word. Possible is also why crews are moving now instead of Saturday. The steering is doing something specific. A mid-level ridge of high pressure sitting north of the islands is acting like a wall, and it should keep Lala running west to west-northwest rather than curving away north. On that track, the core of the storm passes near or just south of the Big Island on Saturday, then continues south of the smaller islands through the rest of the weekend. Heavy rain reaches the Big Island on Friday and spreads westward across the chain over the weekend, near or just south. Those 4 words are where most people relax, and they are the most misleading words in the entire forecast, because Hawaii has run this exact experiment twice in living memory. In August 2024, Hurricane Hone passed within 50 miles of South Point as a Category 1. It never made landfall. It never even came ashore. And it still put more than 28 inches of rain on the Big Island, with several gauges on the windward and southeast-facing slopes, recording 2-day totals above 20 inches. Hone was a Category 1 at its closest approach on the 25th of August, and the rain it delivered was heavy enough that the state's wildfire worry that month turned into a flooding worry inside a single day. 50 miles of open ocean did not help anybody standing on the windward slope. 6 years before that, it was worse. Hurricane Lane in August 2018 also never made landfall in Hawaii. Over 4 days, the gauge at Mountain View on the Big Island recorded 52.02 inches of rain. That is the state record for a single storm, and it makes Lane the wettest tropical cyclone ever measured in Hawaii. The island-wide 4-day average was 17 inches. The single-station maximum reached 57. So on the Big Island, a storm passing just offshore is not a near miss. The mountain does the rest of the work. Moist air runs up nearly 14,000 feet of volcano, cools, and unloads, and the storm does not have to be overhead to make that happen. Which brings the forecast back to the rest of the hazard list. And it is longer than the rain. Storm surge of 1 to 3 feet above ground level. Swells arriving on east-facing shores on Friday and building westward through the weekend, with surf forecast at 15 feet or higher, described in the official wording as life-threatening surf and rip current conditions, coastal flooding, beach erosion, and a wind detail specific to these islands. The strongest gusts are expected along downslope terrain, headlands and passes, where the shape of the land squeezes the air and accelerates it. In Hawaii, the terrain is not a backdrop to a storm. It is part of the machinery, and the hazards do not arrive politely one at a time. The swell reaches east-facing shores on Friday, ahead of the storm itself. The surge builds underneath it. The rain starts on the Big Island the same day. By early Saturday, the same stretch of coastline can be taking 15-foot surf on the outside and floodwater coming down the gulches on the inside, at the same hour, in the dark. That combination is what closes harbors and cuts the coastal highway, and it is why the timing of a watch matters as much as the wind number attached to it. On Oahu, the response started before the storm had a name. Honolulu Mayor Rick Blangiardi said, quote, "We have been preparing for this possibility throughout the week, and we are continuing to step up those preparations across the city." His cabinet met Tuesday evening. The Honolulu Police Department's Major Events Division began preparing to activate a joint operations center. Hart moved to secure rail construction work sites. Outreach teams went out to homeless residents camped near streams, because a stream in Honolulu can go from ankle deep to lethal in under an hour. The Department of Facility Maintenance is monitoring stream levels. County and state crews are clearing waterways and securing equipment, and Maui County has told residents to prepare. And the supply advice being repeated across the state is 14 days, not the mainland's 3. 14 because everything on these islands arrives by ship, and a port closure lasts longer than a storm does. But the storm is not the only thing happening on the Big Island this week. It is not even the only official warning. On Monday, the United States Geological Survey's Hawaiian Volcano Observatory published a notice on Kilauea, alert level advisory, aviation color code yellow. The summit eruption inside Halemaumau was paused with a weak glow persisting from the north vent and nothing from the south. Instruments had recorded about 2.5 microradians of deflation since the previous Friday. A crack that opened on the 30th of July had grown to roughly 66 feet long and 33 feet wide. 18 earthquakes were logged in the lower southwest rift zone in a single day, and continuous volcanic tremor had become the dominant seismic signal from about 7 in the evening. Then, the observatory published the forecast window, episode 53 of the ongoing eruption, Wednesday through Saturday, the 12th to the 15th of August. And on Wednesday, at around 20 past 11 in the morning, precursory low-level eruptive activity began. Read those two windows next to each other. The eruption window and the hurricane window are the same 72 hours, on the same island. There is no connection between them. A tropical cyclone does not trigger an eruption, and an eruption does not steer a storm, and nobody at the observatory or the Hurricane Center has suggested otherwise. It is a coincidence of timing. It is also the reason the emergency operations map for one American county currently has a lava flow and a hurricane watch drawn on it at once. And then there's the third thing, which is the strangest of the three. On Tuesday evening at 48 minutes past 5, a magnitude 5.2 earthquake struck beneath a volcano that nobody can see. Kamaiwakanaloa, the seamount that used to be called Loihi, sits southeast of the island with its summit about 3,280 feet under the sea. The quake was 7 miles down. It was felt widely along the southern and eastern sides of Hawaii Island. It did no damage and it generated no tsunami. It was also not alone. The observatory described it as part of an ongoing sequence associated with unrest at the seamount that began on Sunday, and stated that these earthquakes show no apparent effect on Mauna Loa or Kilauea. Here is the part worth sitting with. There are no working monitoring instruments on that volcano. None. Everything known about it in real time is inferred from land-based seismometers on Hawaii Island, miles away and thousands of feet above it. And the honest reading of the current sequence, which the observatory has given plainly, is that it looks like the swarms of 2020, 2022, and 2024, none of which produced an eruption. The unsettling detail is not a prediction. It is the instrument gap. So why is any of this happening in the same fortnight? Part of the answer was published back in May. NOAA's outlook for the 2026 Central Pacific hurricane season called for a 70% chance of above normal activity, with 5 to 13 tropical cyclones, against a historical average of about 4 to 5. The driver is El Niño, which was expected to persist through the season at moderate strength or stronger. El Niño warms the water in the Central Pacific and weakens the upper-level wind shear that normally shreds these storms before they reach Hawaii. It removes the defense. NOAA attached a caveat to that outlook that deserves repeating, because it is the difference between a forecast and a prophecy. A seasonal outlook is not a landfall forecast. It says how many storms may form. It says nothing about where any of them go, which leaves the record. In the modern era, exactly 2 hurricanes have made a direct strike on the Hawaiian Islands. Dot in 1959 as a Category 1, and Iniki on the 11th of September 1992, which came ashore on Kauai as a Category 4 with winds around 145 miles an hour. 6 people were killed and more than 100 injured. Nearly 1,500 homes were destroyed and about 5,000 more were badly damaged. The damage bill was put at $1.8 billion, and some counts run higher. That is the whole list. 2 direct hits in 67 years. which is exactly why a hurricane watch is taken seriously in a place that rarely sees one, and why nobody in Hilo is treating 4 miles an hour as a comfortable margin. As of the latest advisory, Lala is a tropical storm, still strengthening, still tracking west, with rain reaching the Big Island on Friday and the closest approach expected early Saturday. Nothing has been hit yet. The forecast will change, probably several times, before any of it is over. Subscribe for the real numbers on the next one.